Hello, colleagues, and welcome to Week 0, Unit 3 of SAP Cloud Platform Version Control with Git. In this unit, I will help you get a sense of the different Git-based tools out there. But first, to provide some context, I'd like to speak a little bit about the origin and the history of Git. You may be familiar with this guy, Tux. Tux is the symbol of the Linux operating system, a well-known open source operating system that Linus Torvalds began developing in 1991. Over time, Linux grew in importance and popularity, and in 2005, Linux development hit a crisis. First, the version control system used by Linux stopped providing free support. But more importantly, the number of open source Linux developers had increased to about 10,000 developers. According to Linus Torvalds, there just wasn't a viable version control system powerful and flexible enough to support 10,000 developers, certainly not for free. So, Torvalds wrote a new version control system himself. Having managed the most massive, complex open source project for well over a decade, he understood the power and flexibility a version control system for open source Linux development would need. The result was Git. Now, if you want to just download Git to your computer, what you will most likely be downloading is Git Bash. Git Bash is one of the command line interfaces to Git based on the Bash shell. Git Bash, or really any command line interface to Git, is certainly the most feature-rich way to use Git, featuring well over 60 commands, many of which have dozens of options. If you are using Git Bash or another command line Git interface, it's a bit like learning a new language, because after years of use, there always seems to be more to learn and more elegant ways of getting the results that you want to achieve. If, like me, you like to script in Python or Ruby or AutoHotkey or Perl or some other scripting language, I recommend using Git Bash or another command line interface to add version control to your efforts. The screenshot you see here is just from work I was doing on my own personal library of scripts using Git Bash. One of the very first questions people ask in this course is, what's GitHub, or is Git the same thing as GitHub? GitHub is a web hosting service for Git, created in 2008. If you remember what I said a few seconds ago, that's about 3 years after Git was created. So, if you are starting an open source software project, GitHub provides a free place you can store your Git repository. This reduces the startup costs for open source development. GitHub also provides you other functionality you can use to manage your software development project. We will be using a free GitHub account a lot in this course. Because GitHub is the most popular Git web hosting service, people unfamiliar with Git often confuse Git with GitHub. Remember, Git is the version control tool. GitHub is a company that provides a free Git web hosting service. Because of Git's complexity and people's love for graphical interfaces, there's a lot of other Git tools out there that basically provide interfaces to Git functionality. Atlassian Bitbucket is another web hosting service for Git repositories, essentially a competitor to GitHub. Bitbucket provides integration with Atlassian's broad toolset, including Jira. SmartGit and GitKraken are both graphical Git clients, essentially wrapping around Git on your local machine with a graphical user interface. There are many more graphical tools that wrap around Git functionality. I'm just listing a few. A key point I want you to understand is this. When we're talking about GitHub, Bitbucket, GitKraken, and the like, we're not talking about different versions of Git. The engine, the version control engine that runs each of these tools is Git. It's the same version control system. These tools are all essentially wrappers around Git. Git is the common engine inside of each one. Each tool exposes different subsets of Git functionality, and some of them provide some additional functionality of their own, like integrating with project management or DevOps automation toolsets. Now, when I use the term SAP Web IDE Git, or just Web IDE Git, we're talking basically about another Git client. Web IDE is obviously an integrated development environment created by SAP. It can be used for UI5 development, and now with the full stack Web IDE, Java and HANA DB development. It's an environment that resides inside SAP Cloud Platform. Web IDE has a Git client directly incorporated into the development environment. Like the other Git clients, it exposes different subsets of Git functionality in different ways. SAP Web IDE Git is the main subject of this course. Now, how about Gerrit? What is Gerrit, and how does it relate to Git? Gerrit is an open source project that was founded by Google and contributed to by many individuals and companies. Its main purpose is to facilitate web-based code reviews while managing your Git repositories. As I've said before, the course is going to have a few bonus lectures on Gerrit in week 4. I wanted to conclude by providing you with a few extra resources for additional learning. First, if you have 22 minutes to spare while you're eating lunch or something, I highly recommend watching Linus Torvalds' TED interview where he tells the story of the origins of Git. I found it very entertaining, and it'll help you appreciate the soul of the tool Git and how it's connected to the wider story of open source development and the internet. And next, there's the official Pro Git book. This is really the Bible of Git. Throughout the course, I'm going to use terms consistent with this book. Now, for those of you who have prior Git experience, there is the possibility that I may use terms in a way that is unfamiliar to you. That's because different Git communities on the internet sometimes use the same Git terms to mean different things. So when there's any conflict in Git terms, I will match the terminology used in the Pro Git book, which is the official canonical description of Git. You could also use the Pro Git book to learn Git exhaustively, but it's a pretty complex introduction to Git if you're a beginner. Now, if your goal is to learn Git Bash instead of the Web IDE Git, there are a lot of self-paced guides and tutorials out there on the internet. My personal favorite is Rise Git Tutorial. It's a free book for the Amazon Kindle. You can download it to your computer. If your goal is to learn the GitHub web portal and the additional functionality it adds to Git, the GitHub guides are a great resource. Or if you want to learn Atlassian Bitbucket, the Atlassian Git tutorials are also quite good. So, at this point, you should have a sense of what Git is and what the different software products out there that use Git are. I invite you to join me in the next unit, which will be the last unit of week 0. We will there set up free accounts on GitHub and SAP Cloud Platform, and we'll take our first look at the full stack Web IDE. You will need these in order to perform the examples and to answer the questions in the assignments and in the final exam in the course. One important thing to note about the lecture, the next lecture, is that if you already have a free SAP Cloud Platform account and you've already used the SAP Web IDE before, for example in the OpenSAP course Developing Web Apps with SAP UI5, you might still need to follow along in the next session. The reason is that we're going to be using the new full stack version of the SAP Web IDE. And you need to make sure that this is the version of the Web IDE that's activated and bookmarked in your browser. The old classic version of Web IDE will be deprecated over time, so you should probably move your development to the new full stack version. See you in the next unit.